Hey, welcome back to a new episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. Today, I want to start by asking you something, and I want you to think about and answer this for yourself honestly. When was the last time that someone asked you what you've been working on and your first instinct was to downplay it? Maybe you said, "Oh, it's nothing special," or, it's not a big deal. Or my personal favorite, you listed everything that still needs work before you mention what you actually accomplish. Yeah, me too. And here's what I've been sitting with lately. We don't do that because we're humble. We do that because somewhere along the way, we learned that taking up space, really owning what we've done, what we're worth, what we bring, was dangerous. That it would make people uncomfortable, that it would make us look arrogant, that we should wait to be recognized rather than just be it. This month on the podcast, we're talking about visibility. And I'm not talking about the post more on LinkedIn kind of visibility. I mean the deep rooted internal kind of visibility. The kind where you see yourself clearly first, and then you let the world see you too. And we start today exactly where it begins, with you owning your worth without apologizing for it. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal-getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves, those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. Okay, let's dig into the topic. I want to start by describing to you 4 different women, and let's see if you recognize any of them. The first one, she works hard. Really hard. She delivers, she shows up, she goes above and beyond, and she feels invisible because no one seems to notice. She's waiting for someone, whether it's her manager, her team, her family, to just see her, to acknowledge what she's putting in, and the waiting is exhausting. Woman number 2, she is incredibly capable. People love working with her, but anytime someone praises her work or acknowledges her contributions, she deflects, she minimizes. Oh, it was a team effort, or it's really not that impressive. Those are things that she says all the time. She physically cannot receive recognition without softening it or giving it away. Because if she actually stood in it, she might seem arrogant. She might make someone else feel less. Woman number 3, she's asked to introduce herself at a networking event or a meeting, and she freezes. Not because she doesn't know who she is, but because talking about herself feels fake. Feels like an act or a performance, like she's selling something she doesn't fully believe in. So she stumbles, she undersells, and then she leaves frustrated because that is not actually who she is. And then the last woman I want to share with you, she is talented, she's qualified, she's ready, but she hasn't raised her hand. She hasn't sent that email. She hasn't said, I want that, because she's waiting until she's more ready, waiting until the timing is better, waiting for someone to tap her on the shoulder and say, we want you. She's waiting to be chosen. Now, did you recognize yourself in any of those? Because if I'm honest, I recognize myself in all 4 of them at different points in my life. And what I've come to understand is that these 4 women all have the same root problem. And it's not a skill gap, and it's not an expertise or experience gap. It's a worth. We have not fully given ourselves permission to own what we bring. And that is what today is about. I want to share with you a personal story. This was one of the clearest moments I've ever had of watching myself argue against my own worth. And, when I look back at it, like, it's so clear. But in the moment, like, I couldn't do anything different than what I did. It was a performance review. I had worked incredibly hard that year. I knew that. My team knew that. And when I sat down across from my manager, she slid the form across the table and said the words, "You spent the whole year working towards exceptional performance or above expectations." I don't know what was the language at the time. Probably above expectations. That doesn't matter. But the fact is, it was the highest rating, the one that most people don't get. And do you know what I did? I did not say thank you. I did not sit up a little straighter and let it land. I immediately started listing everything that I had not done. I said something like, "I appreciate that." Maybe I didn't even say that. But I really think there were areas where I could have done more. I didn't finish X as quickly as I wanted. I felt like my communication on why could have been stronger. I'm not sure that exceptional is quite right. I'm sure I didn't use those exact words, but from my recollection of events, some version of that. I argue against my own exceptional performance rating. My manager, to her credit, looked at me and said, "Carolina, I rated you. I'm the one who decides the rating." And I said, "Exceptional." And I nodded and I smiled and I move on. But inside, I generally did not believe her. I thought she was being generous. I thought she maybe didn't see the full picture. I thought, and this is part that still gets me, I thought I knew my performance better than the person whose job was to evaluate it. And I know a lot of times, a lot of people have that feeling the other way around, where you see yourself at a higher performance rating than what your manager does. But this time, I really thought I didn't deserve that. In the moment of the conversation. And here's what I know now that I didn't know then. That was not humility. That was not modesty. That was not being a thoughtful, self-aware professional. That was a worth gap in real time. I could not receive the truth of what I had done because I hadn't given myself permission to believe it first. My manager saw my value more clearly than I did. I immediately jumped and redirected her. I softened the feedback. I basically said, without using these words, of course, "Please don't see me that clearly. It makes me uncomfortable." How many times have you done a version of that? Not necessarily in a formal review, but in a smaller moment. Someone tells you the project was incredible and you say, "It was just really a team effort." Someone compliments your idea and you say, "It's not fully fleshed out yet." Or someone acknowledges you and you redirect the spotlight before it can fully land on you. We do this so automatically. We've practiced it so many times that it doesn't even feel like a choice anymore. But it is a choice every single time. And when I made a different choice, when I finally started practicing receiving what was true about me, everything shifted. Not because I became arrogant, not because I stopped caring about growth, but because I stopped spending energy managing other people's perception of my confidence. I stopped pre-apologizing for what I had done. I stopped trying to protect everyone else from having to witness me believe in myself. That's what we're building this month. That capacity, starting today. And maybe this story doesn't resonate with you. Maybe for you, it comes in a different form. This is not me anymore, even though I have to say that a lot of times, not in performance review, I learned that lesson the hard way, but outside of performance review, I still do that. I am still work in progress. And I have to confess that when I was preparing for the podcast, I always outline a few bullet points of things that I want to cover in which order. And I always think ahead of time of stories, of examples, whether mine or stories that I've heard from others or witnessed on others. And as I was thinking about this story, I know based on mentoring and coaching conversations that I've had with many people that this probably resonates more with women than it does with men. For some reason, we have that tendency. We were raised that way, at least my generation. And as I was thinking about this particular performance review, I was thinking, no one forced me to do it. I did it voluntarily out of a deep ingrained belief that taking up too much space was unsafe, that being seen too early was risky, that if I own my worth too loudly, I'd be seen as arrogant or threatening or too much. Can you relate to that? Because I've been given that feedback before. So I think that every time that I tried to get out of that loop, I got the feedback that I was arrogant or I was too much. I've heard that many times throughout my career. And this feeling doesn't come from nowhere. Most of us were socialized, particularly as women, to be agreeable, to be likable, to be collaborative and humble and not self-promotional. We were taught that good work speaks for itself. We were taught that waiting to be recognized was classier than advocating for yourself. And that condition runs deep. It shows up in the way we send emails, in the way we present ourselves in meetings, in the way that we write our bios, in the way we respond when someone says, "You did a great job." But here's what I know to be true after years of coaching, especially women, and honestly, years of doing my own work. Hiding your worth doesn't make you humble. It makes you hidden. And hidden doesn't serve you, and it doesn't serve the people who need what you have. So I want to address something before we go further, because I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but Carolina, isn't just that bragging? Isn't this like self-promotion? Isn't this just telling myself I'm great even if I have real areas of growth? No. Let me be clear about what owning your worth is and what it's not. Owning your worth is not pretending you're perfect on that you have nothing to learn. It is not loudly announcing your accomplishments to anyone who will listen. It is not comparing yourself to other people to feel superior. It is not ego or arrogance or narcissism. Owning your worth is having an accurate, honest assessment on what you bring to the table, is being able to articulate your value without apologizing for it, is allowing yourself to receive recognition without deflecting it, and making decisions from a place of I belong here instead of I hope I belong here one day. Owning your worth is advocating for yourself in this. Owning your worth is advocating for yourself in the same way you would advocate for someone you love. That last one lasts differently for most people. I know it does for me. You would fight for your best friend. You would tell her she deserves the promotion, the raise, the opportunity. You would list all the reasons she's qualified. You would tell her to stop playing small. When are you going to do that for yourself? Owning your worth is not vanity. It is responsibility. Is it the prerequisite for everything else we're going to talk about this month? Making your work visible, getting recognized, building a strategy of how the world sees you. None of that works if you haven't first done the internal work of deciding that you are worth being seen. Okay, I want to talk about something specific that I think is one of the most insidious ways we undermine our own worth. And it happens so automatically that we don't even notice it. I'm talking about the apology habit. How many times a day do you apologize for things that require zero apology? Sorry, just a quick thought. Sorry to bother you. Sorry, this might be a dumb question. Sorry, I was just going to say. I want you to count how many times today you preface a contribution with an apology or a qualifier or a minimizer. This is probably obvious, but I'm not sure if this is right. Someone smarter than me would say, every one of those is a small act of self-silencing. Every apology you don't own is a signal to yourself and to everyone around you that your voice, your idea, your presence, it's an imposition. And the wild part, no one else in the room is doing it. The person who gets heard, who gets the credit, who gets the opportunity, they are not leading with sorry, but they are just speaking. Now, I'm not saying become someone who never acknowledges mistakes or who bulldoze through without social awareness. Real apologies matter. And when you're actually done something wrong, own it, apologize, make it right. But existing, contributing, taking up space that is rightfully yours, you don't need to apologize for that. I want to give you a practice right now that it's almost too embarrassing because it's so simple. But here we go. For the next week, every time that you're about to say sorry, pause. Ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong? If yes, apologize. If not, just say the thing you were going to say without the apology in front of it. Here's a thought I want to share. Instead of, sorry, I had a thought. Or you can say, can I ask you something? Instead of, sorry, this might be a dumb question. Or try, I want to build on what you said. Instead of, sorry, I was just going to add. This sounds tiny. It is not tiny. Because every time you choose not to apologize for your presence, you are practicing owning your worth. You are training your nervous system that your voice doesn't require permission. Now, I want to take you somewhere a little deeper now, because I think the apology habit and the minimizing and the waiting to be chosen, all of that is a symptom. And the root of it is this. Most of us do not have a clear, current, honest picture of our own worth. Not because we're not worthy, but because we're never actually stopped and take an inventory. We know our weaknesses. We can list them. We can list our failures, our gaps, our areas of improvement, even in our sleep. We've been asked about our greatest weakness in every job interview we've ever had. Some of us can say we have a PhD in our own inadequacies. But our strengths, our contributions, what we've built or navigated or survived or created, we hold that loosely. We qualify it. We forget it the moment the next hard thing shows up. So here's what I want you to do this week. Not someday, not eventually, this week. I want you to do what I call a worth inventory. Get a piece of paper or open your notes app on your phone and answer these questions. 5 questions. Number 1, what problem can I solve that not everyone can solve? It didn't say that only I can solve, because in reality, there's more people in the world that can solve that problem. But the question is, what problem can I solve that not everyone can solve? The second question, what has someone thanked me for in the last 90 days? Number 3, what have I done this year that I'm actually proud of, even if no one else acknowledges it? Number 4, what do people come to me for? And number 5, what would be harder or slower or worse if I wasn't here? These are not trick questions. They are not arrogance gaps. They're just facts. Write the facts down. And then, this is the very important part, read them back. Out loud if you can. Read them the way you would read your best friend's list back to her, with warmth and recognition, without immediately pivoting to, but here's where I fall short. Because Here is what I've seen over and over in my coaching and mentoring work. Women who are deeply competent, genuinely excellent, truly valuable, do not believe it. Not because the evidence isn't there, but because they've never allowed themselves to hold it. Your worth inventory is not a brag sheet. It's a mirror. It shows you what is actually true. And when you can see it clearly, when you know your value from the inside, you stop needing external validation to prove it. You stop waiting to be chosen. You stop apologizing for existing in rooms you belong in. You start leading yourself. Visibility is not a strategy, it's a decision. The decision that you are worth being seen, that your work deserves to be known, that you can take up space in meetings, in conversations, in your career, in your own life without it being an imposition. And we build that from the inside out. Today, week 1, it's the foundation. We can't make your work visible, which is what we're talking about next week, if you're still apologizing for the work existing in the first place. You can't claim executive presence if you haven't yet claimed your own worth. You can't build a visibility strategy if your internal story is still, I don't know if I'm enough. So this is where we start with you, with the truth of what you bring, with the decision that you don't have to earn your place at the table. You already have a seat. Next week, we are talking about making your work visible in your career without feeling like you're bragging. Because I've learned over the years by watching lots of role models on this that there is a real skill to this. And I want to teach it to you. It's one of the most practical things we'll cover all month. And I can't wait. But before I let you go today, I want to leave you with this. Somewhere along the way, someone taught you that making yourself smaller was safer, that shrinking was polite, that waiting was humble. They were wrong. The world does not need a quieter version of you. It does not need you to pre-apologize before you speak or hold back your ideas or wait for someone else to say what you already know. It needs you, the full version, owning your worth out loud. That's the work. That's this month. And it starts today. If this episode hit home, I would love for you to share it with a friend in your life who needs to hear it. And if you're not yet subscribed, hit the button right now so you don't miss a single week of this series. Thank you for joining today. I hope you have a great week ahead, and I can't wait to see you again next week here on the Leading Yourself podcast.